house. I'm Joel Wiseman. We'll see you on the next edition of Chicago Tonight, the Week in Review. And now, here's Bob Sirott.
Thanks, Joel. Garry Meier has made a name for himself as one half of two successful Chicago radio duos. He has also made headlines by walking away from both of those teams. A product of Tinley Park High School, who went to the University of Illinois Medical Center to study pharmacy, Meier's career plans turned to radio with his first job on the air in 1973. He has never worked anywhere but in his hometown of Chicago. And aside from a brief time as a WGN-TV morning news feature reporter, he has been a radio mainstay here. What's next for him and what really happened at WLS? We'll find out from Garry Meier tonight on the Friday Night Show. After Meyer teamed up with Steve Dahl in 1979, a legendary partnership was formed. Over the next 14 years at WLUP and WLS AM and FM, listeners followed their daily radio exploits, which included a few memorable excursions into television, like their Greetings from Graceland.
Hi, I'm Steve Dahl.
And I'm Garry Meier.
And this is our television special about Elvis.
This goes to Colonel Tom, and this goes to Colonel Tom, and this.
Give him everything. That's the way it was in real life.
3 years after his very public breakup with Dahl, Meyer joined Conn as co-host of the afternoon show on WLS. Ratings soared as 8 years passed, and another Chicago radio duo was established. But in January of 2004, WLS management pulled Meyer off the show, the result of stalled contract talks. Good to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me, Bob.
You've been off the air now for almost 5 months.
It's actually 6 months now. It's a half a year already. It's hard to believe. It's interesting. It's real interesting, isn't it?
In Robert Feder's column, May 19th of 2004, the president and general manager of WLS, Zamira Jones, said, "We think Garry Meier and Conn are fabulous personalities. We have been working diligently to get them to continue on the air. We value their talent tremendously and respect the great contribution they have made to WLS." Now, that doesn't sound like management not wanting you. Why didn't you re-sign with WLS? What is it that the public doesn't know? What are we missing?
All right, well, let's take it to January of this year and start there. After a Friday show, I walk out of the studio and I was ushered into the boss's office, and they sat me down and they said, "We don't like the way the contract negotiations are going." And I said, "So?" And they said, "Well, we're going to take you off the air." And I go, "Why? I have 6 weeks to go on my current contract." And they said, "Well, we're taking you off the air." And I said, "Wait a minute. Let's keep negotiating," as George Costanza would say. Negotiating back and forth. I had just given them a proposal. I said, then you respond to that proposal and we keep going. I've got 6 weeks to go here. And they said, "No, give us another number." And I said, "Why would I do that? Then I'm negotiating against myself. Am I being punked here? What's going on?" And they said, "We're taking you off the air. That's it." So I thought, what's all this about? And then before I left the office, this was a classic moment, the program director leaned over and went, "And leave your building pass." Like I'm going to run over there at midnight and start using the copy machine. So I thought, why am I being treated like this? The ratings had just come out the day before. The show was #1 again, and I'm being ushered out the door.
Well, management at that time felt that negotiations had stopped, stalled, nothing was happening, and to protect themselves, they say, they wanted to take you off the air to make the point that they were serious, to also make the point that they were in control, and perhaps to prepare the audience for the fact that you wouldn't be on down the road.
Well, that's really a weird way to do things. A lot of people there work beyond their contract expiring. Why do I get shoved off the air?
Well, was it that your contract had expired, or that they felt that the negotiations were not going well?
I had 6 weeks to go on my contract. I wanted to work till the end if I had to, and keep going on negotiation. That was fine with me. I didn't understand why I was taken off the air. This was just a hardball play, and they thought, well, maybe they'll shake me up and I'll just come running back on Monday. Negotiations were going along. I had a proposal I had sent them. They never responded. I don't know how to negotiate beyond that. That's negotiating.
Well, when you see the quote from your boss in the paper,
Right.
By the way, I think I was doing Meet the Press there a couple of minutes ago when we put that
There
on the
you go.
screen, and he even apologized in that same column to the listeners for what took place, what he regretted, Zamira Jones. When you see that, doesn't that mean to you, they want me?
Well,
Cooler heads will prevail. Let's talk.
What they say in the press and what was actually going on were two different things. At that moment, when that appeared in the press, everything was starting to cave in on me. And I'll explain all that as we go along. But they had waited, after they took me off the air, I had till February 18th before my contract expired. So I didn't hear from them again for almost 2 months. So how anxious were they to get this done? They just let me stay out there. I ran my contract out. Now, after that, I've got no paycheck coming in. So I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what's going on here? We kept responding. We did everything we could to keep this thing moving along. So
You
I don't
felt
know.
you were negotiating in good faith.
Oh, yes.
All
very,
along.
very much so, yes. In the last 6 months, we did everything we could. In fact, we had to go to a funeral in Pennsylvania at one point. They had just sent something over. We were on our way to the airport, but my wife, who is my agent, took the time before we got on the airplane to send something back, even though we had a lot on our mind. She had an uncle that just died. We did everything we possibly could. So I don't understand what they're trying to pull here.
Well, why do you think this happened this way? Why wouldn't they want to talk to you?
I have no idea, Bob. All I did for 8 years was perform, get the ratings and the revenue up. That's all I was doing. No disrespect to them at all. I just kept working and waiting for the moment when you can go into contract talks and say, okay, this is what I accomplished. This is what I think I deserve. I don't know what else to do.
There's no doubt WLS was offering a nice deal, a lucrative deal by all accounts, a long-term deal that would afford you some security, a multi-million-dollar deal. Can you see where some people would look at that and just think, well, he's either greedy or he's nuts to walk away from this? What do you say to those
Okay,
people?
let's start with greedy. I've just walked away from millions of dollars because I put it all on the line. I believe in what I believe in, and I'm willing to put it on the line. That's what I just did. I've done it twice now. If the situation doesn't work, it doesn't work. I will turn it all in. I can't go in there in a situation that doesn't work for me and take their money. I will not do that. I can't work under those circumstances. But we have to go really now to why I didn't take the contract, because it's all involved in the partnership situation here. And if you want to ask me the questions on that, we can go, or whatever you want to do.
Well, what is it exactly that you believe in that was the principle here that you're saying made you turn down what you don't deny is a very lucrative offer?
After they pulled me off in January, I thought, okay, when I left their office, I thought, I've got to talk to Roe, because this is a new development that I did not expect. So I went to Roe and I said, listen, they're going to play hardball with us, so we got to get in sync here. Our agreement between each other was neither of us will sign until we're both happy. That was our agreement. We reinforced it over the months. He said on the air, Garry and I will be together either here or somewhere else, no matter what. He kept repeating that. I believed it. That's what I was going on. So it comes down to a few weeks ago, and that appears in the paper. Roe calls me and says, I've got a deal I'm happy with. I said, fine, but I still have stuff on the table here that's being cleaned up. I need you to hold out. You cannot sign anything until I'm done. That's our agreement. And he goes, it's a good deal. I go, but that's your deal. See, we don't have contracts that are in sync. That has been our Achilles heel here. And I said, Roe, you got to help me here. I stayed out of work now for 4 months with no paycheck, 6 months total, because we had an agreement. You've got to go with me on this. We're good as a unit here in negotiating. That's how you win. You go in as one unit. They're going to divide and conquer here. I've been through this. I know how this works. And he said, it's a good deal. Just sign it. He said, Roe, I have things that have to be cleared up here. You got to go the distance with me. And then the pressure was on. As soon as he said to them, I'm ready to sign, they took that as, what's Garry going to do? And then it all started to cave in. They sent a contract over at 2:30 one day and said, you have till 5 o'clock to respond, otherwise the deal's off. I wasn't even home. They never called in advance to say it was coming over. I didn't get home till 4 o'clock. So I look at this thing. I've got an hour to look at it. So my wife and I said, we're just going to have to let this go, because I can't do all this in an hour. So the next day, my wife called the general manager and said, is the deal off as per 5 o'clock last night? And he goes, yes. Best wishes to you.
But that was at the end of a period of about 4 months where you could negotiate with anybody, correct?
I had to wait 90 days after my contract expired Otherwise, I would have had to show them any deal, and they could match it, and that would be it.
So but you had some, you had
yeah.
a couple of months
Right,
anyway
right.
to be a free agent.
Right.
Was there another opportunity? Was there an offer that was comparable that you and Roe Conn could look at and say, this could be worth saying no to WLS for?
We had several other offers. They weren't maybe as lucrative as WLS, but at that time, it was WLS that we had brought to #1. The show was nothing when we got it. We brought it to #1. We had to go all the way with WLS, and then at the end of Roe's contract, which was only 2 weeks away, we could have decided, okay, this is what WLS is offering, this is the bottom line. Is it someplace we want to stay? Because I thought the environment was not healthy anymore. The way they treated me was trash. I thought through all this, it was unnecessary and insulting to take me off the air. And I said, Roe, just stay till the end of your contract as far as not signing, and then we'll look at it all and make a decision.
But
how does that hurt?
With 2 weeks to go and nothing better on the table, if you're Roe Conn and you're getting some pressure from management, don't you say, well, I don't see anything on the horizon that's even close. I better,
Bob,
I better re-sign
They got him in a room. They're planning all his fears. Of course they're going to do that. We are the partnership. This is where you put all of your strength. This is what has taken us to the dance. You put all of your feeling and passion into the partnership. We will make a good living together for as long as we want because it's us. Management is not going to be your pal. That's what they're going to do. They're going to do their job. We've got to do our job. We've got to protect ourselves. So we go all the way to the Roe's contract and go, okay, we stay at WLS. Is it not the healthiest environment? Okay, let's talk about that. But you had to go to you got to go all the way to the end sometimes. We were almost there.
So you wanted him to hold out 2 more weeks?
At least, that's all. That's 2 more weeks. And I could have maybe gotten a deal done with WLS. I wasn't opposed to staying. I was trying to work anything I could with them, but they were impossible. After he said he was going to sign, they just forget it. They said, forget it. We're done with you.
Did Roe Conn say to you, look, there's a couple weeks to go here. There's nothing else on the table from another station that looks as attractive. Let's just get back to work.
But see, those are all fears playing on him. That's the fear factor. And I'm not going to succumb to fear because they're going to do a number on your head to try to make you think there's nothing out there. But my thought was, it's not a healthy environment. Maybe we should go somewhere else. We might not make as much money, but we'll make a good amount of money and have a long run for as long as we want and be in a healthier environment. Is that wrong?
Well, when you say it was not healthy there, are you referring to something outside of the negotiations? Because,
well, my God, I mean,
didn't they basically leave you guys alone? And if management gives you a tough time during negotiations, and you've been in this business a long time, isn't the best you can hope for, get the best deal you can, and then hope they leave you alone and live with it?
We had this agreement, and that was the agreement. He didn't keep to the agreement, so I'm hanging like a sleeve there. And what am I going to do? Just say, okay, I'll sign this. It wasn't the deal I wanted. Then go in for the next 5 years as a beaten dog. They beat me down because Roe decided to sign, and I'm hanging there, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't walk in there knowing we had this agreement and it was breached. I couldn't do it.
All right, after you cut off negotiations with WLS back in September, or shall we say after they really reached some sort of impasse there, you fired your agent at the time, Todd Musburger, for allegedly not providing enough details to you on his dealings with the station. Then he countered by suing you for more than $90,000 in fees that he said were due him for working to get you what he said in his lawsuit that was filed, a 10-year, $12 million deal. Now, that's when your wife, Cynthia, began acting as your representative. Were you apprehensive about using someone, your wife, who has no experience as a talent agent at such an important and sensitive time, because your talks at WLS at that point were critical?
No, I had no hesitation at all. I was extremely disappointed with Mr. Musburger at that point, and I decided to fire him. That was that. And I asked my wife to pick up the negotiations, because that's what she does for a living, so it's a talent
She does that in real estate.
Right. And we have a lawyer to handle the legal stuff. I want in an agent integrity, intelligence, someone who won't lie to me, and someone who will take care of me, and who would do that more than my wife? And the way she's been vilified by some people is ridiculous. Because she's my wife, that somehow diminishes any role she could play in this. They act like, what's she doing out of the kitchen? What is this, 1955? I mean, come on. She's a great person, and my life is a lot better with her than before when I wasn't married to her, so I'm going with her.
Conn said on the air on WLS that he didn't want to get into commenting on how your wife affected the negotiations.
Right.
But it's clear from what he did say and by his tone that he thought she adversely affected the contract talks.
And how did she do that? She's my agent. He's got his own agent. By me being off the air, I think his number was going up. He had a paycheck coming in. I'm sitting there, no paycheck, going, okay, we're going to stick together, right, all the way to the end, no matter what, to see if we can get my contract done now that you're happy with yours. How did she hurt his deal at all? I don't understand this. If he had kept to our deal, our promise together, everything would have been fine, one way or another. We'd be working either at WLS or somewhere else, making a good amount of money. I don't want this fear factor thing to be let go so easily, because that's what happened. Something happened where they got in his head, and he just, what's the problem here? You don't have enough confidence in what we do to know that we can do whatever after 8 years of creating this?
Conn would probably say that he didn't have enough confidence in what might happen in 14 days to change the situation,
well,
looking at a multi-million-dollar offer.
Okay, well, that's what I told him to be ready for. When they pulled me off the air, it was, let's get into the battle mode. So that's what you got to do. I mean, this is a tough business. You got to be ready to be tough.
What's it like to read about, not just yourself, because as you say, it's a tough business. You're
Right.
used to having people take pot shots at you. It comes with the job,
Right.
with the territory. But what's it like now that your wife has become part of this public soap opera and she's taking shots on the air in the press? What has that been like?
We weather that okay. It's not pleasant, but the shots are just cheap shots. It's just some media columns trying to create a circus out of one's life, and they'll use anybody for that, and I'm not buying into it. I'm very happy with the way everything's gone. She's handled everything the way I wanted her to, and ask anybody that she's negotiated with how it's been. You should go to the source of that instead of some media column who's going to decide I'm going to be the person they throw under the bus, and she's going to be with me. So
Go to the source, Zamira Jones?
Zamira, any of the other people she's talked to. So ask them.
As you know, all of this is fueled by what Steve Dahl has said publicly about the Steve and Garry breakup. And we have a clip from Steve Dahl from our Friday night show, February 2003. I asked him why you two guys couldn't stay together. This was his response.
All right.
I don't know if this is going to sound, brilliant in its simplicity or moronic, but it really came down to the fact that I think he wanted to go out on his own. I think that he engineered it in the sense that he married somebody who demanded that he go out on his own. I mean, he married a woman who does not like me, never did. It told him he had to start, like, keeping things off of the air, not sharing as much of himself.
Did you make an effort, though? Did you make an effort? You could have smoothed that out.
I tried. I tried.
Wanted to. You really wanted to smooth it out?
Yeah, there was no way to do it.
Anything you'd like to say to Steve about that or anything else?
Please, I mean, come on. That is a scapegoat from all the real problems that had been going on for years that I tried to fix and could not. It was unworkable at the end. I don't understand this. He's been saying mean things about me and my wife for years. I have no issue with him anymore. I moved on. He got to keep the show. I had to start all over again. My wife barely knew him. I had no desire to go and start my own show 4 minutes after I got out of my honeymoon. Who would want to do that? I had no desire to be on my own. She didn't orchestrate anything. He orchestrated the whole thing to the point where I couldn't work with it anymore. I tried to fix it. What do you do beyond that? I said, okay, Steve, you can keep the show. I got to move on, whatever that is. I have nothing at the time given to me or promised to me after I left him. I had to start all over. And I was grateful enough to get a show. It was by myself, but that was just because that was the way it is at that point. And I just moved from there.
You have no issue with him?
I have no issue
at this
with
point?
him. Let me just say this. Steve and I did some great radio together. He's a good competitor. I have nothing bad to say about him at this point because it's 11 years ago. I don't know what the issue is anymore. I choose to remember the good things we did together. I learned a lot from him, and that's it. I wish him well.
Well, there was no doubt that you two were terrific together, perfect together. If the opportunity were there, would there be any scenario at all, any set of circumstances that could lead you into working with Steve again?
I have no reason to believe that will happen at this point. I have no plan right now. I don't have a plan that this is going to happen or that's going to happen. It's a long time ago. I really don't know. And when I see that, I didn't see that show. I don't know what to believe because I'm thinking it's 11 years. He's moved on maybe. But no, I see that and it's the same old stuff. I don't get it.
So, was that a yes or
What?
no? That if the circumstances
No,
were aligned
I don't-
properly, you would consider it.
I have no reason to believe that will happen at all.
But if it did, if an
I would
opportunity
imagine
presented itself.
if I had to guess, I'm sure he's enjoying what's happening to me right now. If I had to guess, by looking at that clip, I think he's enjoying this. So let him enjoy it. I don't really care.
If WLS said to you right now, come on back, let's talk about this, let's hammer something out, let's figure this out, would you be willing to go back and talk to them?
That's extremely unlikely right now. I'm going to take the summer off and just sort it all out. And I haven't had a summer off since high school. How about you? So I'm looking forward to that.
You know, I had an experience after Fox thing in the morning.
All right,
you know?
so you know what that's like. It feels pretty good. I think now it's time to let everything cool down. I thought it very painful that Roe decided to muddy me up in the columns right after he signed. I'm thinking, wait a minute, didn't we do this together for 8 years?
What do you mean muddy you up?
Well, the stuff I read in the columns that obviously he told them, and it seemed like it was all one-sided. I'm thinking, wait a minute, just let the dust settle for a day and think about what's happened here before we all start going for the jugular.
Did you pick up the phone, call those columns, and try to straighten things out?
No.
How
No.
come?
Actually, okay, I did call a columnist yesterday. I never returned my call, so I thought, well, that's, come on, how weak is that?
But for the most part, didn't you
No, I
sort
thought-
of take
no.
yourself out of commission, out of
I took my, because
it for a while?
maybe I'm just different this way. I want to see things kind of unfold before I start reacting to them. I've talked to nobody in 6 months. I haven't talked to any columnists. I thought this would be a good forum right now to come out and tell the story.
Do you think you made any mistakes along the way, looking back at what's happened this year?
This year? No. I did everything professionally, and I was happy with every decision. I went with the plan that I had with my partner. That was the plan. We agreed to the plan, and then it changed right in the middle of battle, and then it all caved in on me. And I'm sorry, but I went with the plan that we agreed on, and that was not held to. And so management decided that's my weak point. We're going after him. And I'm sure they said, what's he going to do? Leave a second partner? Walk away from all this? Well, you know what? Yes, I will, because I can't go in there in a wrong situation. It was completely wrong at the end. For me to go back there would have been the worst thing in my life for 5 years right now. I'd be sitting there going, why did he do that to me? This is my partner. You got to be together in these things. Let me say this about both partnerships, because I'm sure people are going, the guy's nuts. He left 2 guys, da-da-da. But did you notice that neither of them complained during the whole run of our shows about me? Nobody said, neither of those guys said, you know what, Gary's really not doing his job. He's not pulling his weight. No, because it was going very well. All the good stuff was happening, right? At the end, in both cases, essentially, here's what happened. I turned to them and I said, listen, I need some support here. I need some help. It's really at a point where I need you as a partner. And they both said, in so many words, hey, I'm taken care of. You're on your own. That's not a partnership. It's either a partnership or it's not. It's kind of pregnant. What? This is the partnership. I do battle that way. I go in, I put it all on the line. That's it.
Well, I think both partners perhaps would say that a final meeting, if you will, or a talk to iron things out and preserve what was a great investment in the case of Steve and Garry and in the case of Roe and Garry never happened.
By whose account? I talked for 3 years to Steve over various issues that I couldn't work with anymore. I went 3 years beyond what I thought I could. And he's admitted some of these things on the air. I was dealing with them every day. You're in a room, Bob, like this for 4 hours, creating something, and 4.5 hours with Steve and myself. You just can't dismiss a lot of things because it's just this wavelength that you're on. Steve and I and Roe and I went with this equation. It's like pilot, co-pilot. Things go along pretty calmly most of the time, and then you get into a bad storm. And it's how you get through that storm together that really solidifies the partnership. And that's what I believe in. I believe in the partnership when it works. And when it works, it's fabulous. I love working with another person.
So you would do that again. You haven't soured on, you don't want to go solo at this point,
They said that after Steve, and I thought, that was tough. I don't know. And then this fell into my lap, and I thought I did really good work with Roe. I really enjoyed working with Roe, and I liked working with Steve.
So you have no regrets when I asked you if you've made any mistakes, and you said this year, No, but you're not saying that you made mistakes in leaving Steve either,
No.
right? You feel comfortable with how things have gone.
I really think I grew out of that. I think my radio experience with Roe showed my growth after leaving Steve and having another partner, how I grew. I felt like I grew. I think is all good.
What now? Might you leave Chicago?
You know, anything's possible. I could be done.
leaving?
I could be done in radio. I could be, I don't know. I'm going to let it, I got some interesting calls this week. Some from people that I expected to get calls from. Some from people that I never expected to get calls from. It was very gratifying. So I thought, this is interesting now. I'm going to let this unfold and take the summer, take the next 6 months, I don't know, and take the next year.
And
it doesn't matter to me.
Is it radio in your future, definitely?
I love radio. I love doing radio. I want to thank the audience. If this is it, thanks to the audience. I hope they got some entertainment from me. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if it's radio, fine. If it's something else, if it's a move, then it's a move. My wife and I are committed to whatever makes us happy at this point. And we're happy with everything that's happened. It happened exactly the way it was orchestrated. We followed the letter of everything that was agreed upon, and that's it.
I hope everything works out
It always
in the
does,
best
Bob.
possible way for you
always
and your
does. Thank
family.
you.
I thank you for
Thank
talking
you.
to us here on the Friday Night Show.
Thank you.
And there are a lot of people here who hope you are back on the air in Chicago
Well,
soon.
thank you. I love Chicago. I've always lived here.
Well, thanks again for being
right.
on the Friday Night Show. And we'll be back Monday night live at 7 on Chicago Tonight. Until then, for all of us on the late shift at Channel 11, thanks for watching and have a great weekend.
Guest transportation for this program provided by AM's Limousine Service.
Down the street one day, a man came up to me and asked me what the time was that was on my watch. Yeah, I said.
Closed captioning for this program is made possible by the generous support of Robert Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury firm.
We're Sara Lee. You probably know us for our
Cheesecake.
cheesecake.
Cheesecake. We're not only into that.